Welcome to the Dibley Diaries for this week. This week we're going to be thinking about the Matthew 11 passage where Jesus is talking about his yoke being easy and his burden being light. And I've been thinking about this during the week and about the rural challenge that it presents to us, because in rural churches or smaller churches in particular, people end up carrying burdens to support their church communities which are not light for them because they are not in their skill set. So it may be that you have someone whose main job or their main preference, their skill set is working with people, providing pastoral care for them and so on. So that can be their strong preference, and they may end up having to do the accounts because there is no one else to do them. Or it may be that someone who actually is great with numbers and all those sorts of things has to end up doing a lot of paperwork, sorting those out, which isn't their natural place. So we are stuck in a position where church communities are very tiny, that people carry these really heavy burdens for them, which would be lighter burdens for other people because the other people aren't there. Now, I'm always a strong advocate of deployment within the Church of England so that people could use skills across benefices from church to church, so that it may be that you have a treasurer who looks after more than one church community and so on. However, it's really hard to do, and I have not yet solved a structural way of making that happen. But it is a problem for us, and we need to be mindful. Are the people in our church communities carrying burdens which are really, really heavy because they're the wrong things for them to be carrying? Could they be carrying something else which would be better for them, which would be easier for them to do? Thought for the week this week is about a little passage from Matthew 11, and I'm going to read it out because I'm so used to saying it in the old-fashioned words that if I try and say it in the modern words, I'm probably going to get it wrong if I don't refer to the notes. So this is in Matthew 11. "Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So we're going to be thinking about that, and I've got two different contexts in which I'm going to be speaking about this at this weekend. The first is actually a baptism service. And it's going to be a busy family service with lots of children. And so why do I think that I want to speak about this bit of the gospel passage? Well, it's to do with thinking about what that child might want to be or might be being called to be when they grow up. So what will this child grow to do, to be? What will this child be carrying? What burdens will they be carrying? And I've got some things in my house that I'm going to try and get some of the other children to lift out of the bag and to look at what they are. Different things that this child might be, or the children might be when they're older. So I've got a hat for a police person, I've got like a sailor's hat, I think I've got a doctor's stethoscope somewhere. So I'm going to be putting those things in the bag and getting the children to take them out. And then we're going to be talking a bit about how actually we don't know the future of the child, but God does know what this child is going to be in the future, what they're going to do. And in the words of the Swedish house mafia, "Don't worry, child, heaven has a plan for you." And that's a very reassuring thing for us to think about. And it's tied in with this idea that actually God gives us a yoke, and that helps carry burdens. So whatever this child is called to do, that God will be able to support them in that and make their carrying of that burden an easier task. I'll probably say something about how one of the really important things in this passage is that Jesus does not say that there will be no burdens. Jesus doesn't say that there will be no burdens. Jesus says that there will be burdens, but his yoke will make them easier to carry and it will make the burdens feel lighter. And I reckon Jesus must have known a bit about yokes. I mean, we don't think about yokes very often now. Certainly not as things for humans, maybe. Maybe we have an old-fashioned picture of an ox in a yoke, maybe pulling a plough or pulling a cart. But, of course, humans use yokes to carry things. In our imagery in England, might be tied mainly to milkmaids using yokes to help carry heavy buckets. And Jesus knew that if a yoke fitted someone well, it really helped carry the heavy burdens. But God is saying there will be burdens. You will need my yoke, and it will make carrying the burdens easier. So I said that I used to use this phrase in the old-fashioned words a lot. Come to me, all those who travail and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. You know, so I was saying those words sometimes 3 times a week in a Book of Common Prayer service. And there have been times when I've been saying those words and I have felt that the burden is unbearably heavy. But actually, the burden was really heavy. And I wasn't sure I could carry it. And I wasn't sure how I could do it. And I wasn't sure how it would go on for me. But actually, Jesus is saying it will be okay. It will be okay that you carry this burden. But also, and this is what I've really been thinking about, is that he says, come and I will give you rest, and then you take your yoke on you. Come and I will give you rest, and then you take your yoke on you. And I think resting is something that we need to be doing more consciously. Jesus rested consciously, and we have this insidious and harmful vision that a vicar should always be busy. And in some ways I want to say, well, that is us swapping our Christian faith for the cult of busyness. And that can become kind of insidious within an organisation. Well, the vicar should be busy in a church organisation, therefore everyone else should be busy. And I want to say, yes, there are times to be busy for God, and there are times that we must be resting. There are times where we should be resting, and that is something which is really important for us to think about. How do we come and we rest with God, and then how do we take up our yoke and carry our burden with God? The Dibley moment of the week this week is something which happened to me during a Zoom service during COVID times. We had a great team who ran our Zoom services with us, and there was one morning where I was looking at everybody on the screens and everything. I could see that one particular lady had fallen really quite fast asleep quite early on in the service, and every now and then I glanced across to her where she was on the screen, and she was still sleeping. She was still very still in her chair, and I was quite anxious about it. And I got to the point where I thought, if she doesn't wake up before the end of the service, I'm going to have to phone her relative, who I know lives next door, see if he can go and knock on her door and just check that she's okay. Fortunately, she woke up during the last hymn, so I didn't have to worry her relative, and I had been quite anxious. I was very relieved that she was absolutely fine. She'd just been having a good rest. Well, that's it for the Dibley Diaries for this week. I pray that you and your village, however large or small, have a really blessed week where you can all get a good rest, and where you can have an easy yoke, and that your burdens would be light.